Okay, guys, so you're standing at the grocery store staring at this wall of milk. Or if you're like me, you're right now sitting in your kitchen ordering groceries online. And there's so many milk options. And we did a Facebook post on this, and people had so many opinions about milk. It was kind of astounding. But there's whole milk, and skim milk, and almond milk, and oat milk, and coconut milk, and goat milk. Frankly, it's overwhelming. So, which one is actually the best for your health? Today, I'm going to just break it down, the nutrients, the benefits, the risks, and at the end, if you stick with me, I'm going to give you my pick for the absolute best milk overall and the best choice if you're lactose intolerant. Let's go. Let's start with whole milk. So, whole milk has the advantage of being really nutrient dense. It's 8 grams of protein. There is 12 grams of natural sugar, and that's because lactose is a sugar in it, without any fiber, but also about 8 grams of fat. The fat is good. It's going to slow down the absorption of lactose sugar. So it's going to markedly lower the glycemic impact of whole milk. That's going to keep your blood sugar much more stable, and why you want to stay away from skim milk, which doesn't have the fat, so is much more likely to spike your blood sugar, or 2% milk. You want whole fat milk because that's what's going to give you all the nutrient absorption without having the glycemic impact to spike your blood sugar. The downside, you want to make sure it's organic, because conventional milk can contain a lot of pesticides, residues, hormones, and a lot of inflammatory proteins. Skim and 2% made the market as being healthier because of low fat, and people are still kind of hanging on, at least some people. But when you strip the fat, you lose not only the glycemic lowering effect, but also satiety. Fat is really what creates satiety for us. You're going to be much more full by drinking a glass of whole milk. Skim milk and 2% milk are much more markedly, if you guys put like a continuous glucose monitor on, I've done this, you see a much bigger spike in blood sugar than whole milk. And that's not good for metabolic health. Here's something else that gets interesting. So standard milk contains 2 types of beta casein proteins, A1 and A2. Now, A1 can trigger inflammation and in a lot of people with digestive issues. So some people who can't tolerate milk, it's actually the A1 casein protein and not the lactose that's creating the problem. A2 milk comes from cows that naturally only make the A2M protein. Easier on the gut, less bloating, potentially a lot less immune reactivity. So if you love dairy but you don't feel great after drinking it, A2 could be the game changer. That's what we buy in my house, is we buy the A2 milk. You'll see it with a big old huge A2 label. So I just pulled that out of my refrigerator. That's the A2 organic whole milk. Let's talk about goat milk. So goat milk, the good thing about it is it naturally just has A2 type proteins and has much smaller fat globules. That makes it a lot easier to digest for many people, because the high fat content for some people can create gas and bloating. It's also lower in lactose, so it's going to have less glycemic impact. Downside, if any of you guys have tasted goat milk, I know some people love it, is a kind of a strong flavor. It is still dairy based, so those people who have dairy sensitivities are still going to have some sensitivities to goat milk. But because it's the A2 type protein and the smaller fat globules, people are going to tolerate it better. How about almond milk? So almond milk is super low calorie, only about 30 to 40 calories a cup, but also really no nutrient value. Low in protein, usually only about 1 gram compared to 8 grams in dairy. If it's fortified, it's going to give you some calcium and vitamin D. But you got to be careful, because a lot of the almond milks add gums, stabilizers, or sugar. Like order the almond milk at Starbucks, for instance. That's a sugar-based almond milk. That's why it tastes a little bit sweet. So nutrient density really low, but it's a light dairy-free option. This, I did order some because I do drink almond milk. And I know it might not be the best choice for me, but I like it. I like it for my smoothies. I like it in my coffee. And the dairy just bothers me a little bit. So I do the almond milk, even though I know from a health perspective it's not the best. It does have a low glycemic index because it is very low carbohydrate. So it's not going to spike your blood sugar. But again, anything that is non-dairy potentially can have a little bit more toxins in it too. Almond a lot less likely than what we're going to talk about next, which is oat milk. Oat milk really got a lot of popularity as being a really healthy alternative. It became really popular for coffee drinkers. I know every time I go out with people for meals, a lot of the sort of health conscious people order oat milk. It's probably the worst that you can do. It does have a little bit of protein, a little bit more than almond milk, maybe 2 grams, so it's still not much, but you're talking about 20 grams of carbohydrates. That's going to really spike your blood sugar. It's going to hit hard. So you'll see oat milk will cause a big, huge spike because there's also no fat and no protein to blunt that effect. It is allergen friendly and it is a little bit more sustainable to produce maybe than almond milk, but here's where it really gets bad. Oat milk is full of glyphosates, toxins. Oats are probably one of the most toxic of the things that we're going to make milk out of. So you have to be really careful. Oat milk is not only a huge glycemic hit to you, almost sometimes as much as drinking a soda, and it's going to have a lot more toxins in it. So it's really not a good choice. Coconut milk is probably going to be a good choice. So coconut milk's really rich in high and medium chain triglycerides, so MCTs. And those are nice because the body can quickly use those for energy. But again, almost no protein. Calories are higher, especially if you get like the canned versions of the coconut milk. But calories are higher in coconut milk, quite a bit higher. And it does have a little bit of carbohydrate, so it can cause some spike in glucose as well. I would also say that they're lots of times kind of watered down. So you get coconut milk at some of the restaurants, things like that, they water it down quite a bit. It's not a very good nutrient-dense source, but it's low allergen. It's not going to bother people as much, and it probably does have less toxins in it, particularly than things like oat milk. It does spike my glucose a bit, whereas almond milk does not. How about those other nut milks? A lot of people talked about cashew, macadamia. I actually gimmickly brought about one of those things that you could make milk out of anything. You can put rice in there, you can put cashews in there, you can make milk out of anything. Really, all of these are generally similar to almond milk. They're low calorie, but they're low protein. They are somewhat creamier, sometimes like cashew milk. It's a lot more creamy feeling, so it's actually good to kind of cook with, things like that. Again, nutrient value is pretty low, and the toxicity kind of depends on where you've gotten it from and the type of nut. One more big part when you're looking at all of this is that whole immunogenicity picture. And it's really what a lot of people who have been advised by their nutritionists, they have autoimmune issues, to stay away from dairy, saying that dairy proteins can trigger immune responses. And the plant milks do have fewer immunogenic proteins, but probably the additives like gums, pesticide residues, things like that can cause inflammation. Always buying organic, whether it's dairy or plant-based, is going to be a safer alternative. The dairy may be more immunogenic to people. That casein protein can be more immunogenic. That's mostly the A1 component, which is why the A2 dairy is a better choice. And those people who are say, well, they're eating goat milk because it's less immunogenicity, that's primarily because of the A2 protein that's in it. So what's the final verdict here? If you tolerate dairy, the gold standard is going to be organic, whole, A2 milk. You get complete protein. It is a good protein source. You're eating 8 grams in a cup. It's got natural fats. It's going to stabilize your blood sugar. If you're lactose intolerant, then probably going to goat milk is a good option for you. Again, a high protein milk, and you want to make sure, again, it's organic goat milk. That can actually be a little hard to find and expensive, so that may be an issue when you're looking at all these milks. Next choice, probably going to coconut milks, but again, those spike my blood sugar, so you have to be careful. I would recommend, if you're not sure, do an experiment with a continuous glucose monitor. So get your doctor to prescribe, or you can get them online now, a CGM, and see what happens. Try these different milks and see which ones potentially are spiking your blood sugar more. That'll give you a good idea for what's right for you. So doing a CGM experiment for 2 weeks is an inexpensive way to help you kind of figure this out. Next time you're lining that grocery aisle or looking through your Whole Foods shopping cart, hopefully this will kind of come to mind. And those of you who are eating oat milk, I'm going to put that as bottom of the list, just things to stay away from. Let's go with organic, A2 dairy, goat milk, coconut milk, almond milk, and the other nut milks probably sort of equal to almond milk. Oat milk, just stay away from. Hopefully that answers some of the questions. Guys, I'd love to hear your opinions on this. So drop things in the comments. If you like this, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, share our YouTube channel. So happy to share more information with you guys. I love all the learning that goes on here, and we'll talk to you next time.